Hey everyone, it's Thanksgiving and we're still here. Maybe you're in the car headed to be with your family or walking the dog before the big meal, or maybe you're cranking out that last minute pie recipe. Whatever it is, we're so glad you hit play. Maybe you're trying to escape your family, right? Am I right? Today, on this Thanksgiving holiday, we're going to take a spin back to each of our favorite episodes. Maybe it was an interview that changed our mind or got us to think a little differently, or maybe it's something kind of moving or emotional that we've hung on to. Whatever the reason, it's the episode that stuck with each of us. We're really grateful that you've joined us today, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, we're taping this ahead of time, but we're anticipating that we'd be happy about Thanksgiving.
I know. We were like, should we just drop a few bars of our favorite song? Should we tell people our favorite recipes? But Tom, you came up with this really lovely idea. But before we get into that, Mark is away because like a normal person, he's taking time off. But the three of us are here. I'm Brenda Adhikari.
Yeah, I'm Tom Johnson.
I'm Maggie Bartlett.
Yeah, so Tom, you had this lovely idea that given this holiday that is about gratitude and giving thanks, we take the opportunity to share one episode that each one of us found personally significant and that we're really grateful for. And maybe it was one that opened our eyes to a different way of looking at something, or maybe it kind of clicked together disparate ideas, a eureka-like moment, or maybe it was just moving, you know? We've been doing the show now for 11 months, y'all. And we have nearly 60 episodes. I feel like maybe we have 60. Now I'm just really curious what y'all picked. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way I'm going to be able to pick just one. Okay. Mark sent us a note about what his favorite episode was. We'll read that in a minute. But Maggie, why don't you kick us off? What's an episode that really stuck with you?
Oh man, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
And when you said pick a favorite episode or think about them, I struggled. I was like, man, there's this one. I really loved when we had Paul Offit on to talk about measles, but more than like the expert insight, I think the convenings when we had different people from public health and MAHA on for the first time, and there was just this vulnerability across the board. I learned a lot listening to my colleagues in public health, but also listening to people who are frustrated with the establishment. And at the end, seeing like the relationships built and the things that we can move forward from it was just really tangibly exciting to me. And it's something that I feel like for a long time in public health, we felt like there was no way to move these things forward. And then we're having these conversations and we're demonstrating that path. And so that's been exciting for me. When I think back to even some of our like early episodes, when I was wildly nervous to even be talking on a podcast, just having so many different voices talk about their experience and what they're seeing, which was very different from what I thought at the outset, right? Like I thought if we just get more data out there, that's how we solve a lot of this. And it's not that. There's plenty of data. It's this trust element. And it's been, I think, that through line of different episodes, seeing that trust be built in real time. Like I think about the CDC episode we had with the 3 people who resigned in protest. There was so many people who didn't realize that they had resigned in protest. They thought, well, this is part of the DOJ situation. And it was just fascinating to see that back and forth about what's being seen in different silos. And then ultimately people realizing the humanity of these different things. Anyway, that's a long-winded one. I went through too many episodes.
No.
I ceded my time.
I know. I'm definitely not going to just pick one. I just want you to know that, Tom. Your idea of picking one has already failed. I can't. These are picking amongst our children. Tom, you go. What are?
I picked one. I picked one very specific one.
You're a rule follower.
Very,
Okay, go.
very, very specific. Okay. August 14th. The official title of the episode was MAHA Public Health Conversation number 6 on food, on nutrition, on government, on the shooting at the CDC. Okay. So we'd done a bunch of these combos, as Maggie eloquently laid out, between supporters of MAHA and veterans of public health, science, medicine. And they were very good. They were very eye-opening, revealing. Um, very tentative, very cautious. Everybody was very respectful, which of course is, was wonderful because it kind of put people's guards down and people opened up a little bit. But on Maha Public Conversation number 6, something changed. So if you look at the history of television, and you think about the pre-mid 70s and the post-mid 70s,
Oh boy.
oh boy,
Yeah, let's do it.
there was
All
a little
right.
TV show called
Preach.
there was a little TV show called All in the Family. And this is mid 70s. And it's really the moment when sort of network entertainment television got real. Heavy themes got real. Government, race, economy, haves, have nots, racism, everything, sexism. I felt that Maha Conversation number 6, Maha Public Health Conversation number 6 is when we got real. It was sort of our all in the family moment. And it came right after the shooting at the CDC. So feelings were very raw. And we had from Maha, Elizabeth Frost, Jacqueline Caporati. We had John Klar, Aaron Everett. And then we had Aaron Martin. We had Kevin Hall, who had just resigned in protest from the NIH, the food nutrition scientist.
Yeah, now you're moving to the science part of it.
Yeah, the science team now. And we had Tashira Leak. We had Susan Main, who was a former director of the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition at the FDA. And we had Dr. Mati Davis, who ran the public health department in the city of St. Louis. So we roll into this conversation, and Brenda, you very wisely just opened it up for comments about the shooting. And everybody was really sad about that. But it sort of set the tone for the conversation. And the themes that very quickly came out of this conversation or started to emerge in this conversation was labeling each other shuts down dialogue. So if you're hurdling this DEI, you're a DEI. I remember Mati Davis saying, I've been told so many times that I've only gotten my jobs because I'm a DEI hire. And look at the results I got in St. Louis. On the other side, if you're an anti-vaxxer, that shuts down the Maha side. That was in full form. There was a whole conversation really that if you listen carefully, it's all about sort of dehumanization and danger. And this is like everybody online feels like we can dehumanize each other, the other side. And that has led to death threats. We heard about death threats towards public health veterans, like families, which everybody obviously denounced, much like they denounced the shooting. We heard this refrain that nobody owns the moral high ground in this conversation. And you could see each side sort of critiquing itself, which was really raw and hard to do. There was a feeling that on the public health side, there's a lot of work to do. On the Maha side, there was criticism that some of the things that are occurring are performative, and we're potentially shying away from big battles with sort of corporate America. There was this real tension between the top and the grassroots. I remember Aaron Everett, talking about how the real problem that faced both public health and Maha is that money funnels from America to the Capitol and then distributed back to the states, and everybody's just in agreement. I remember Mati, I think at one point said, like, amen, brother, total agreement about this system. Couldn't we just let local municipalities run and figure out for themselves, like, what's working on the ground rather than somebody back in like a Doge binge killing funds for programs that bring healthy, fresh food from urban farms to be distributed at a YMCA for people who can't afford healthy, fresh food? Like, why did that get killed? Nobody could explain it. It just makes no sense. It was just a stroke of a pen or a click of a key and back in DC, and it's gone. And then there was this really good conversation about, like, are we talking about health for all Americans? Because that's the language we're using in Maha. But to a lot of people, it's feeling like some Americans. So if you don't have access to fresh food, or if you're from the LGBTQ community, like, do you feel part of this? We're all going to get healthy. And that was a real interesting theme as well. But the bottom line is people felt like we had evolved from these conversations and they could speak honestly. And it was still respectful, but it was raw and it was open. And it really was kind of the first time that veteran public health on these calls voice their anger and their frustrations. But at the same time, what's really interesting, and I didn't notice at the time, but I noticed it when I went back and listened to it, is everyone's using the word we. Even the public health folks like Kevin Hall, who had just basically lost his position at the NIH, is immediately turning around and saying, if we could do this, if we could leverage MAHA, if we could work with MAHA, if together we could do this, we could take this on. Like, you guys have the grassroots, you got the momentum. If we could channel that, we could actually make a change for the things that I've been trying to do in my whole career, which was like a really cool thing. So in that rawness, we come out as we.
Yeah.
And so I finally thought, okay, the experiment here was, could we all get together and just sort of see that we're human beings and that we're not monsters? And we've achieved that. And in this conversation, it was like, all right, let's move past that now and talk about what we actually could accomplish now that you've got the momentum. Some of us have skills. I think it was Susan Main saying, here are the things that I learned from years of battling these Washington, D.C. bureaucracies. I could show you how to navigate those things. Like, we could do this together.
These hacks. I remember she was
exactly.
like, look, you're in government now. Like, let me tell you what happens. Right. Yeah. And it was like, if I'm Maha and I'm just new into town, I'm taking notes because Susan Main has been around the block,
Right.
That's a really good one, Tom. That's a good one.
Go back and listen.
I will.
August 14th, everybody listening.
Here's the truth. All the Maha public health conversations have been so special to us.
Yep.
They are an extraordinary experience. They're powerful. We all leave. We can't talk for like an hour afterwards because we're processing. We hear from you all the most about those episodes. So it's hard for me not to go to those. The very first one, I agree with you, Maggie, was the one that kind of really, it both opened my heart. It kind of blew my mind that we were having these conversations. But I'm going to challenge myself today to actually give you something that is not one of those big Maha public health conversations, because yes, I would pick all of them if I'm being real with you. But one conversation has really stuck with me. And the way I know it stuck with me is it's an episode I keep listening to over and over again. The conversation that Paul Offit and Michael Mina had on the Hep B birth dose was a really impactful conversation for me. And here's why. It seems so like Hep B birth dose. That's such a nitty gritty getting into it, whatever. But I remember, Tom, having a conversation with you about like there's, the ACIP meeting is happening and this is probably going to come up. And what's the best way to approach this? And do we do a big Maha public health conversation or get someone who really believes that we should be delaying the Hep B vaccine like Rand Paul thinks to when you're 12 years old, and someone from public health really doubling down that like you really cannot do that or else children will be unhealthy. And then the idea of getting two people who are like these titans in the worlds of immunology and infectious disease, but who feel a little differently, and particularly one who literally is not just talking the talk, but he walked the walk by delaying the birth dose for his own child, which was Michael Mina, by just like 30 days. It just made the whole thing more persuasive and credible as like, this is the conversation that's happening around the country. Not the wildly polarized Twitter spats, people yelling at each other in a Senate confirmation hearing or whatever, but truly people who are like, yeah, I respect you. I respect what you've done your whole life. And I heard from so many people in Maha as well as public health who loved that conversation. I always ask myself, like, why? Why was this conversation something where we went to two people who are like very public health people, Yeah. And why was it that so many people in Maha really responded? And I think it's because we didn't villainize the idea of inspecting and looking at this thing that, quite honestly, more than half of this country is not comfortable with the vaccine schedule. I'm not saying that they're right, but they have a lot of questions about it. They're not sure about its safety, right? And like the episode in a way was like this permission structure to kind of talk about it, like a conversation that is happening in private across America, but there's like real fear about having it in public because people will either call you anti-vax. I mean, Michael Mina told us on this episode that people in public health have called him anti-vax. because
Mm.
of his stance on the Hep B birth dose.
He's wildly supportive of vaccines.
He is an immunologist who is
Right.
wildly supportive of vaccines, who's an epidemiologist. Like, this is a guy who thinks vaccines are the tool that have helped save lives, one of the biggest tools, right? So I don't know. I just did that one do anything for you guys? Because for me, it was, and Paul was also incredible in that episode, and all the things he's seen, and they were just so honest with each other, and that's really what we go for on this show, is to kind of take it out of the talking points place and really get into the nitty gritty of what's going through our minds and our hearts on this. And yes, having the data drive it, but also knowing that human beings aren't just like data bots, that they are people who also are looking at how it works for their lives and things like that. And it just felt like a really honest conversation.
It was very good. It was very nuanced. It was very reasonable. And both those guys really, like, in very good faith, just presented these two variations on this topic. And, we've talked a lot about how so often today, everything is just about opinion. You just instantly go to opinion, and you never sort of thoroughly immerse yourself in what's the story, like what is this really about, what are the facts, like what's a non sort of biased, nonpartisan, like, understanding of like where this is at, and then I'll form my opinion. So I think in that episode we did our best to sort of walk people through exactly what this whole issue is about, the history of the birth dose, and then we have these two powerhouses like taking slightly different takes on this thing. And I thought that was really fascinating. I remember asking, I could be wrong, but I remember asking Dr. Minna, like, it is a voluntary thing. It's a recommendation. It's voluntary. So isn't the best course of action just to keep the current policy where it's recommended for a mother to do this, but it's her call. And if she wants to delay it, she can delay it. If she wants to take it, she can take it. So why do we need to change anything here? And then I remember asking Dr. Offit, the American public, or a big chunk of the public, has spoken and spoken loudly that just because science, medicine, public health can reduce risks down to tiny, tiny, tiny levels, do they really always want that? It's like, are they not saying like enough? Like, on some of these things, have we just gone too far? Like, are we now into reducing risks from 0.0002 to 0.0001? Like enough, and isn't that the message? And the conversation was just terrific about these things. I mean, Dr. Offit's like, why wouldn't we do this? There is such a infinitesimal risk of this vaccine. It's proven to be so safe. Why would we expose anybody to the risk? And then Michael Minna had a different take, which is like, sometimes we need to loosen the recommendations and give people more agency. And the reality is, when you recommend something at birth and people are disheveled and exhausted, they're just going to say yes. Like, we just need to do a better job of letting people make sort of an individualized decision based on their own individualized histories and diagnoses, and we need to have more trust and loosen and listen to the public here. Otherwise, we lose the whole battle if we don't give on things like this that can be done in a safe way. So
Yeah.
It was an excellent conversation.
What I liked about that one was, I think it brought out even more nuance about what happens with hepatitis B. Like, Paul really illuminated that it's not just how it gets thrown away with being IV drug use or sex, but there's a proportion of people who are getting it because the virus lingers. It's in places. Like, there's no way to know. And I think that was an interesting piece to pull up. And then the personal aspect of Michael talking about it for him and his wife, what their choices were and why they delayed it. And they weren't talking about delaying it until their children were 12. But still, I think even in that, there was tension in Paul wouldn't wait a few months. Michael did. And I think it's helpful to hear different public health voices talk about the choices they made as parents, because we're multifaceted individuals as well.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's such a good point, Maggie, and I agree with you that sometimes this like binary that it's regular people and then public health, you know what I mean? That you all kind of hang out with your white lab coats in some massive tower somewhere. I hope that this show, has shown that like one of my favorite things we do on those Maha conversations are the introductions. When people just talk about who they are, you know what I mean? How they're moms and dads, and some have, lost family members to the opioid epidemic. And some people have come from working class backgrounds in public health, who've come from working class backgrounds, who've seen with their own eyes and ears what it means not to have access to healthcare and a hospital. Hearing from people in Maha who really believed and supported the vaccination schedule, and then their experience during COVID has really caused a lot of distrust. I just want to also shout out like one person in Maha who's been our ride or die in this whole thing, and that's been Elizabeth Frost. I have so much gratitude for Frosty, we call her these days, because she's just become such a friend of the pod. She's the one who, since the beginning, was like, I really want to do this because I want to show people that like not everyone in Maha is like an anti-vax, whatever you think of us, that we also are in this because, like you, we care a lot about the health of our country. And look, I'm not here to sane wash things that are happening in Washington. It's like, for me personally, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of choices that are being made at HHS, but I also know that taking the conversation out of Washington and reminding ourselves what people are actually, those conversations people are having on the ground, in some ways is like, we have to do that as a country, because if we only look at what's happening on Washington and on X, we're getting a very warped idea of reality and how people are actually experiencing policy. So, okay. So, should we read what Dr. Mark said?
I'm curious what he...
All right. Tom, will you do the honor?
I will. All right. This is labeled as Mark Thoughts. For this Thanksgiving episode, I'm so thankful I'm not on Zoom with these turkeys. As I'm taking a moment... As I'm taking a moment to step back from the noise, and as much as it was wonky, I can't help but go back to a very early episode. It's been a theme that we've touched on so many times and something that has fueled so much outrage. Can you sue a vaccine manufacturer?
Oh, the Dorit Rice episode.
Of course.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Yep.
Okay, so Mark writes, for me, that episode cut through thick, weaponized talking points about vaccine liability and revealed truth with clarity and compassion. I learned so much about how our world works, and it also pushed me into a new layer of empathy for those who genuinely suffer from vaccine injuries. And then there was the conversation with doctors like Dr. Rachel Bedard and Dr. Craig Spencer, a kind of masterclass for me on what true empathetic medicine looks like. I admire them so much. Unwavering commitment. We've learned so much from watching them, and getting to know Dr. Paul Offit has been transformative. I'm also very thankful to meet Maggie through all this and to reunite with Tom and Brenda after years of being apart.
Oh.
All right, we're going to skip this. It's too complimentary to me. We're going to skip that. Brenda.
What? No, Tom.
Read it.
All right. Tom with his gift of storytelling and the way he sharpens my own thinking.
Yes.
Brenda, whose willingness to go wide and deep has opened up minds and hearts to people and conversations that wouldn't exist otherwise. And Maggie, whose calm dedication to science grounds us. And finally, I'm extremely grateful for the years I spent learning this craft from some of the best mentors in the business. I came to this work more than 15 years ago when a fluke encounter with the legend Diane Sawyer described myself as a reporter trapped in a dermatologist's body. With that... I think Diane said that. I kind of misread that. With that, she opened the door to this world and led me to the likes of Tom and Brenda, examples of journalists I worked alongside of for so many years who held the line on quality, also making room for giant fits of laughter. Those experiences have shaped every episode we've made. My hope, especially after watching how the press has been treated lately, is that we all offer each other a little grace. This show was born out of what good journalism and doctoring can still do, and while a lack of trust is real, I'm reminded that we should make sure no one finds a way to manufacture mistrust to bring us down. So this Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for all of our guests, but 2 shout-outs for me. Nancy, I'm rooting for your son, and I have a soft spot for the kids with cystic fibrosis we've heard about, more than you know.
Oh, Mark, that is really
nice.
beautiful.
I'm tearing up.
I know, I'm tearing up too. He's like, I don't know, he's like out there somewhere, and we're like tearing up at his words.
Exactly. That's very nice.
That's really beautiful. Well, look, you guys, more than anything, we want to express gratitude to our listeners for being on this journey with us. Can you believe it's been almost a year? The best part about this has been meeting people, honestly, has been forming a community. And I'm so just grateful for the folks who care so much about health in this country. And the truth is, that is the biggest tent of all. I can't think of a bigger tent than people who care about health, and it's become a political fault line. It's become something that divides us. And for good reason. There are some really foundational differences and fundamental differences and ways in which just people are getting really hurt this year in all kinds of ways. But I want to just end on the note of just immense gratitude for joining us on this journey. And ultimately, we are also trying to create a big tent on this show and want to create a safe space and a safe, welcome, warm space for everyone to come and engage, like pop a proverbial can of beer I will say I've never had a can of beer while doing our show. But
Okay.
maybe, like in the evening.
Interesting
after we're chilling.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for reals. I am a good employee of Why Should I Trust You? But yeah, I just thank you. That's really it. Just thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Keep listening. Keep sending us notes. We read them very closely.
Yeah.
And it impacts us and also is great for generating ideas of things that we need to be covering, because ultimately it's ideas that bubble up from listeners.
And so please go back to taking your nap. Maybe you already were napping and we're like voices that are going in and out of your consciousness right now as you're dreaming of the pie you ate. I'm going to get into an ASMR mode right now. No, I'm just kidding. Enjoy. Happy Thanksgiving. So grateful. And we will see you back here next week.